Hi everyone, Sajid Amit here and welcome to yet another review, and this time I bring you the Penon Turbos, which are these pretty impressive 6BA IMs. They come in at $550 and they're pretty wonderful, guys. That's a TLDR, so if that's all you want to know, and if you want to go ahead and buy this, what the party trick of this IM is, it's vocals. Okay, for those of you who want to stay on and watch the rest of the review, I will break this down into discussion of its specs, its technology, of aesthetics, which are pretty, self-evident, and of course its cable, what accessories it comes with, and then I'll jump right into sound, which is what I'm here to do, which is what I like to do. If you followed my work, I'm all about the sound, guys. Okay, without further ado, to jump right in and talk a bit about specs, and I will show you my trusty iPad because that's just easier for me than to just sort of memorize all these specs. In any case, this is the Penon Turbo model. You can buy it from the penonaudio.com website. It's $550. You can choose your cable version, your termination. You can decide what shipping method you want, etc. This does ship from Hong Kong, if I'm not mistaken. And in terms of specs, it has tuning switches, which are pretty wonderful. It has 4 tuning switches, as might be evident. I'll talk about these switches in a bit. So aesthetics-wise, of course, these have a natural pearl sort of a look, a mother of pearl sort of a finish, which is pretty nice. I'll hold this up so it's a little more visible for you guys. But anyway, I'll talk about aesthetics in a bit. So this has 6 balanced armatures, guys. A 3-way switch system. I'll leave this in the link. I don't want to read this out because you can basically tweak its high frequency. You can tweak its bass significantly. You have 2 switches with which to tweak its bass, and even in its stock form, it is pretty bassy, guys. Hence, I think it's called Turbo. So it's a 3+1 switch system, and it's got 2 Sonyon balanced armatures for high frequency, 2 Knolls for mid frequencies, and 2 Sonyon double opening holes for low frequency. 16 ohms, guys, and 103 dB, so it's not difficult to drive. Passive noise isolation is 26 dB. So that's it for the specs, guys. And of course, the cable that it comes with is a very nice cable. It is a nice looking cable. It's a nice feeling cable, and it's ergonomic. It doesn't tangle easily. It does, you can coil it easily. It doesn't have a whole lot of memory. It is a 19-core OCC and silver plated mixed braided IM cable, and it is wonderful. Let me just remind you that, Penon does specialize in making cables, and that's how I think they initially made their foray into high-end audio. And soon after, they decided to get into IMs, and with great success. I have reviewed their Penon Fan 2 in the past, which are, I think, price class defining, and I think these are also a contender for a price class defining IM. In terms of other accessories, you of course get a very handy cable tie, and I love these things because when I buy them locally, I don't like the finish, especially around the edges of these cable ties, but this is pretty well finished and it looks nice. I like the color, this sort of a tan color. You get this pouch that you can use if you wanted to, but although I'm not sure what you would use it for because it's quite small. And this carrying case, which is pretty fantastic, it's roomy, and this sort of a golden colored zipper, it works for me. It's a pretty high quality zipper. It feels fairly sturdy and premium, and I do like it a lot. Okay, you get other accessories as well. You get a whole bunch of tips. You get tips in green color, 2 different shades if you want to accessorize and do an aesthetic match, and you get these ones with red in it if you want to contrast, because aesthetics, I increasingly realize, form a huge part of the hobby. You get this cleaning tool, and of course things that you can use to tweak the tuning switches. These tuning switches, by the way, is a nice segue into talking about sound, guys. But right before I do that, I just want to take a moment and show you what these IMs look like, because I feel like these are very impressive and very fine works of art. And there's a thread attached to my fingernail that just refuses to come off. It has finally. So guys, these are some really nice looking IMs. These are transparent, so you can see through the innards, and they look very nice. The tuning switches work magnificently, and I'll be showing you guys charts to show you how much the frequency response deviates from the bass frequency response once you have different permutations of the tuning switches on. But these are very nice looking. I'm not sure if this sort of a jade or emerald is your color, and it's not really my color, but they're so nice that I have really come to appreciate the aesthetics here. Okay, so that's it about aesthetics. Now to talk about sound, guys, I just want to start by showing you some of the songs that I was recently playing with it. When playing Breaking the Habit of Linkin Park, which is a song that I've played and played and played. I'm not a huge Linkin Park fan, guys. I'm more into classic rock and metal. But I mean, I was just playing it for the heck of it, and I loved it. I mean, the vocals here have so much clarity. Talking about tuning, guys, the party trick of this IM is the way it balances vocal clarity with vocal richness, vocal intimacy with vocal warmth. That is just not something easy to do, because then you have to be a master tuner, because then you have to have a bit of mid bass and you have to have pin gain, and it does have both. I'll show you the graph like I said in a bit, but to go back to this track, Linkin Park Breaking the Habit, I was just flabbergasted at the vocal nuances, inflections, resolution in the mid-range, which is partially aided by the fact that this has pin gain. So Harman-tuned IMs do tend to be good at vocals, I will admit. And a lot of you audiophiles are vocal first audiophiles, a lot of us not. And I do agree with something that was said in one Abyss video, that there are two types of audiophiles. One set who like vocals. I mean, we all like vocals. But you have those who are mid-range first kind of guys, and then you have those who are not mid-range first kind of guys. If you are in the former category, this will impress you, because although this is not exactly Harman tuned, in that this has more lower and mid treble than Harman, and I think this has significantly more mid bass than Harman. You get a nice amount of punch, you get nice vocal clarity. Linkin Park sounds alive. I played If I Ever Lose My Faith in You, which is a cover by Disturbed, and especially when playing Rockin' in the Free Will by Smith & Myers, this was one of the first times, despite it being not one of my priciest IMs, I was able to make out instrument separation so well. First of all, the keyboard, which acts like a piano in this track, just sounds perfect. The vocals sound perfect. And on top of that, you hear the violin in the background, which is very hard to pick out on a lot of lesser IMs. So the bottom line is, and it was similar when playing a Perfect Circle, By and Down by the River, the bass was very impressive. Fine Again by Cedar was impressive. Even Breakdown by Tantric, which is a pretty lively song, this kept pace, this kept up, and this was pretty impressive in terms of how well it resolved, how great it was timbrally, how great it was in terms of mid-range, and all that. Guys, I want to show you the frequency response, because I do think it is a masterclass tuning effort, especially if you like this sort of a sound. Which is what exactly? Which is this harmonious sound, but as is pretty evident, it's not a lower bass or sub bass focused IM. So if you look at the yellow graph, which is the turbo average, the yellow graph will show you that it has a very nice glide from sub to mid bass. So that is basically what's giving the warmth and the punch, which is critical if you have an all BA IM. Manufacturers looking at this, watching this video, I implore you, if you have a BA set and if you want it to be an all-rounder, so if you want to cater to us rockheads and metalheads, you do want to give this sort of a glide so it has some mid-bass presence. Of course, this mid-bass can be accentuated, as is pretty evident with the tuning switches, and it has some lower treble here going on, some mid-treble before it fades away, and it's never ever bright. Overall, it's a neutral, warm IM, guys, and I really like its tuning. And of course, like I said, the tuning switches work really, really well, as was evident from the graph that I just showed you, so you can make it into quite a bassy affair. Okay. Technical performance wise is again where Penon IMs shine, and they give you more bang for the buck again and again and again. Where this gives you more bang for the buck, as has been sort of hinted at already, is resolution. This is resolving in spades. It has more resolution than a lot of IMs I've heard in this price class. This is more resolving than the Dunu SA6 Mark II. This is more resolving than the Sennheiser i600. And overall, guys, if you're not listening to a lot of rock, which is something that I think the i600 does really well at, and if you're not listening to, I guess, some EDM, I would prefer this to both the i600 and the Dunu SA6. This is a clear winner over Dunu SA6 because I think this is better bass and more resolution and better soundstage width. So soundstage wise, what I really like about this IM is that A, it's very spacious. This was to some extent accentuated by this amazing DAP, which is a master of soundstage width, but also the image height. And image height is something that often confuses people. Like, I think the best example is if you listen to an aria, you get these massive images that actually appear tall vertically. And that's not easy to do with IMs. As some IMs pull it off, and it's often an outcome of tuning, trickery. Oftentimes, if you have a bit of mid bass, you do get a bit of note weight, which can then give images a certain amount of corporeality, certain amount of fleshiness, certain amount of body that can aid image height. So that's what's going on here to some extent. So you get very distinct imaging because it's so resolving. You get very tall images and you get a wide soundstage. So you get the best of a lot of worlds with this. So resolution and soundstage wise, this is absolutely masterclass, guys. And you get more than what you pay for at this price point. And timbre, like I said, Penon IM somehow just nail timbre. They're tribrids, they're all BA IMs, they just nail timbre. This does not sound plasticky like a lot of BAs. It has a speed that you get with BAs, but it doesn't leave you wanting for decay. The bass, for instance, although it's not the most dynamic affair, even with the tuning switches, you still get a fair amount of punch and heft and a bit of grunt. And although it doesn't sound as hard-knuckled as a dynamic driver-based bass, it still sounds pretty punchy and pretty dynamic. So overall for dynamics, it's not a slouch. I'd give it a 7 out of a 10. For resolution, I think it's a 10 out of a 10 for its price class. For soundstage and imaging and timbre, it's either a 9 or a 10. So overall, an extremely competent performer technically, guys. So there you have it, guys. Penon Turbo is a must listen. It's a highly recommended IM for me, and I think it's one of the best in its price class. And I've tried this with other sources and not just the super expensive Sony DAP, which is my go-to. I've tried this of the Angel amp DAC, from Earman Audio, and great accessorization, like I said, great cable, bunch of tips, and that's it. I hope this was useful, guys. Penon Turbo gets a massive thumbs up for me. If you like this video, give it a like, and please follow my work because it does help, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye-bye.